This is coffee number 5. I'm your host, Lara Schmoisman. Hello, welcome back to coffee number 5. Today I have my coffee that is getting cold because I was in my pre-podcast chat a little too long, but because I cannot keep talking to him. So welcome, John Cafarelli, CEO of Beauty Matters and founder of Ernest Supply. So thank you for being here and having coffee with me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I met you a while ago, and then we keep running into each other in different beauty events because everyone thinks that there's so many beauty brands out there and it's a huge market, but honestly, it's not that big. And you keep running into the same people.
I know. Well, I just feel like that's the beauty of our industry, so to speak, is that, I just feel like there's a core group of people that you just keep on running into, and I love that. And I've enjoyed seeing you. Last time I saw you, we were in LA together.
Yeah.
I always love running into a familiar face, especially when we're on the road.
And who knows where we're gonna run next?
Who knows? You're right.
Yes. So let's do a little. I love to hear the story, how you got here, because you have a very different background than coming into the beauty industry and then as a beauty brand owner. So bring us back to today. How did you get here?
So the story did not start with me dreaming as a little kid that I was going to start a skincare brand and end up running a beauty-focused media company. That was sort of not the plan. I started my career, I graduated Georgetown in 2001 with a degree in finance and econ. I was an investment banker for a few years. I worked in the media and telecommunications M&A group. And then I left and I joined an investment fund, one that was focused on industrials, which was very cool because I got to travel a lot and be on factory floors. And that sort of got me very interested in how things are made. And then I helped to found a fund that was exclusively focused on consumer products. And at the time, we were very unique in the sense that we were one of the few funds that was focused on sort of small and mid-cap consumer brands. And my focus was multi-unit retail and fashion. I also ended up sort of moving into looking at companies that sort of were playing into this very evolving trend at the time of healthy living and wellness. And so that's kind of how I got interested in beauty, was through that. But at the time, this wasn't a place where a lot of investors were focusing really any time and effort. I used to go.
What year are we talking about?
This is like 2007, 2008 was when we first started.
Because the industry changed so much since that time until today. Like not everyone can go and have a beauty line. It changed dramatically.
Well, it happened not only with beauty, but it happened with food and beverage as well. And it was sort of this like sea change. And I think what ended up happening here's my theory. I don't know if this is actually what happened, but here's my theory.
Hear it.
So in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of manufacturing moved outside of the United States. And it left these, really great manufacturing facilities with a lot of excess capacity, right? So there was a lot of opportunity to grow, to grow their business because there was too much equipment and not enough business. And so companies started working with brands on much smaller runs, right? So it used to be that if you wanted to, manufacture a moisturizer, a face moisturizer, you had to buy 1 million pieces, right? Now the minimums were going down, right?
I think they started a trend of something really smart that many of the public doesn't know, but it's a white labeling.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And so you had minimums going down. You had this like focus on working with smaller brands or white labeling brands. You had this sort of concept of formulation libraries coming about, which made things a lot easier and a lot less expensive to go out and to put together a product line. And so more people had access to it. That combined with so that was sort of on the product side, right? But then on the marketing side, the whole world changed as well.
Yeah.
And so, social media, for better or for worse, is sort of the great equalizer. It used to be that if you had a consumer brand and you wanted to tell people about it, the gatekeepers were people like Vogue, or GQ, or one of the big magazines, or you had to have a budget, to be able to advertise on billboards or to advertise on television. But now, instead of a $75,000 page in Vogue, you could seed your product to a bunch of influencers and get the word out. Or you could, even better, you could start posting really great content and build your own audience and have your own megaphone to tell people about your brand. And so the barriers to marketing your product and to telling the world about your product sort of came down as well. So it was sort of this like confluence of a bunch of different things that made the consumer space a lot more accessible to smaller brands. And so, people with great ideas, people who were in the market looking for something that they couldn't find, or people who, had a lifestyle that was, maybe not unique, but not overly well satisfied by, the mass brands that were out there, now had this, great impetus to go to the marketplace with a new idea or a new product, and they could actually get it made and see it on the shelf. And so that was kind of, I guess I sort of played into that trend when I launched Ernest Supplies back in the day.
Okay, hold on. I think we're missing a chunk of the story here. You went from being in the financial world and investments, and then how did you get to launch your own line and to be on Beauty Matter?
So one of the things that I used to do as part of my job at the private equity fund that I was at was I used to go to Expo West every year. And this is the true sign of how things have changed, because at the time there were not a ton of investors at Expo West. Now, if you go in 2023, or if you went in 2023, Expo West is overrun with investors. There's like 10,000 investor events, like that strip of all of the restaurants that's sort of, right near the convention center. Every night of the event, there's like, 10 investor dinners and cocktail parties to go to. I mean, now it is completely overrun. And it's a little hard to stand out if you're an investor in that space. But at the time, there really weren't that many investors that were focused on the healthy living and the wellness space. And so I used to go out, and with a few people, we used to occasionally put together a dinner. We used to get an investment bank, or we'd get like a big financial advisory firm to sponsor it, an accounting firm or a law firm or something to sponsor it. And it would be this like great event where we'd bring people together and we'd get to know them and we'd get to know their businesses, and it would sort of set us up to be able to make an investment if we were really intrigued. I had met a formulator who at the time was a younger guy who I was telling about this idea that I had for a moisturizer. And he was like, hey, let's work on it together. Let's make that moisturizer, right? So we worked on a formula for this moisturizer, which is now our protective matte moisturizer. And really at the beginning, it was just to make a moisturizer because I thought that was cool. And I was going to use it just for myself. I wasn't going to sell it. I was just going to keep it. And I would buy it in these like gallon like pumps from him. And I would pump it into smaller bottles, and I would share it with people, and I would take it with me when I would travel. And that was the early stages of Ernest Supplies. It was sort of like, I'm just going to do this because I think it's cool and it's fun. And it's, I designed the product. It was exactly what I wanted. So I loved it. I thought other people would like it. So it was fun to share it. And people, including like my mom, my aunt, my friends, they would all tell me, they're like, this moisturizer is awesome. Like, we really love it. You should sell it. And so, we were sort of coming to the end of our first fund, and I was looking for something that was a little bit more creative than what I was doing. Although I loved my job, by the way. I loved working in the investment space. It was so fun to meet all of the entrepreneurs that were doing great things and to help them to build their business. But I was looking for something. I was young enough and maybe dumb enough to want to take the chance to be one of those entrepreneurs and to give it a shot on my own. And so while I was still working, and that's a big thing. I actually tell people this all the time, get started while you still have another job, because it takes a long time to put together a skincare brand.
It is. And I wanted to talk about something we were talking about earlier, about how you got your inspiration about the packaging.
Oh, yeah. Well, so, there's always this notion of, I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. I've been an environmentalist since I was a little kid. You could ask my parents, because
I will.
I'm old. I'm old enough that recycling was a brand new thing when I was a kid. No one recycled until sort of like, maybe it was like the late 80s, early 90s here in New York, which is where I grew up. And we were given recycling bins by the town, and I was the rule enforcer. I would rinse out every single thing that could be rinsed out. I would pull apart packaging and make sure. And I was just adamant about it, because it killed me for things to just go into a landfill. And so I've sort of always been very focused on, environmental issues and being a good steward of our environment. And so when I was designing the packaging for Ernest Supplies, I wanted something that was different, but also wanted to steal inspiration from outside of the beauty space, which sometimes I think is really fun to do, like to look outside of your space for inspiration. And I realized that food had a lot of the same problems as beauty in terms of, packaging and keeping things fresh. I think, food's similar to beauty products, because I'm an active person. Either it's going to the gym or getting on a plane and going to California, because I used to live between New York and California. So I'm always on the road. I wanted the products to be not delicate. I wanted them to be easy to travel with.
That's a huge thing. It's the worst when you put one of your beauty products and you're traveling, because I travel also a lot, and they explode. Come on.
Totally. I actually used to do this thing at trade shows where I used to take one of our pouches and I used to put it on the ground and I used to step on it. And at the time I was a little bit lighter than I am now, but I used to step on it just to prove that they were so resilient that you could actually stand on it and it wouldn't explode. So if you throw it in a bag and it ends up in the bottom of the bag, it's not going to explode.
Yeah, let's be honest, beauty products are not cheap. And
they're not.
They're not. And if you are spending your money, you are investing, because you're investing in how you're going to be looking, how you feel. And if you have any issues, many of those beauty products are going to help you to feel better and to be better. And it's a lot of money because it's glass. Oh, it dropped. It's all broken. There are many things that I feel like we're failing in the beauty industry because we're not thinking ahead. They can be really pretty, but I think that you can be very pretty, but also safe, because you need to think about the consumer.
Totally. I'm a big believer that, so in my mind, luxury to me, like I'm not a Rolex watch person. So when I think of like luxury, I don't automatically go to like the Rolex watch, right? When I think of luxury, I think of products that are well designed, that fit my lifestyle and just make my life easier, right? That to me is luxury, right? And so when we were designing,
I hate waste. So I cannot deal with those packages that I can be really pretty, but then you cannot get the last drop. I want to use until the last drop.
Totally. You could squeeze every drop out of our pouches.
And I love that.
And the best part is, so here's a couple of great things about the pouch. Not to be selling the pouch, but here's some great things about the pouch.
Go ahead, sell the pouch.
So first I'm going to brag, and I'm going to say that we were one of the first, we were the first American skincare brand to use the stand-up spouted pouch. It was, that had the benefit of getting us a lot of press to start. Mm-hmm. So here we were, this brand that I literally started in my living room on nights and weekends while I was working at a private equity fund. I'm not someone who's ever designed anything before in my life, but learned how to use, Illustrator and Photoshop and all those things to put together, design work. I actually was working with someone as well who was teaching me all this stuff. And we put together, the basics of what these pouches were going to look like. Then we had to go out and find someone to manufacture them, right? So we went out and we manufactured them.
That's not easy. I always say, like, that was it's the hardest part because of the quantities also.
Totally. So there was that challenge, and then the challenge of filling them because there was no supply chain for this in the US at the time, and so I actually had to go out and buy equipment. And there's a machine shop here in New York City that I had to work with that sort of made custom fittings so that we could top fill our stand-up spouted pouches. So being first has the advantage of allowing you to sort of stand out. But being first also has the disadvantage of there's no supply chain. There's really no path to follow. And so you have to sort of cut your own path. But here's some great things about the pouch. So not only did they stand out on the shelf, not only did they get us a lot of press when we first launched, but they are a smaller carbon footprint because there's a very high product to package ratio. So there was less waste in that respect. They use about 75% less plastic than a traditional plastic bottle, which was really important to me. And they sort of fit all the things that we talked about in terms of like lifestyle. So I was traveling a lot. I wanted it to be, beautiful, but not delicate. There's an oxygen layer.
You wanted to appeal to certain target audience. Did you know who your target audience was?
I mean, at the time, the way we were talking about the brand when we first started was different than sort of the way it ended up. So I was a big believer in, again, sort of a little bit too early, I think, to the conversation, but I was a big believer in creating products that were sort of non-gender specific. I didn't think that I needed, I thought that men and women and however someone identifies would be really interested in just a high quality moisturizer. At the time, we'll talk about this in a second, but at the time, this was a quote unquote clean formulation. That definition has changed. So the formula that we launched with has been adjusted, but at the time, it based on today's standards, it would not have been considered a clean formulation, but back then it was. So it was a little bit cleaner than the average in terms of the formulation. It had sort of the sustainable packaging attached to it. I felt like men, were often very overlooked in the beauty space, but I also wanted to create a product that was not going to be, overly masculine, that anyone who was interested in this sort of wellness lifestyle would be interested in our products. And here's a fact. Ernest Supplies' customer base today is roughly 50-50. Believe it or not. So in the early 2010s, a lot of retailers were looking for men's. It was like a growth area for them, and there weren't a lot of men's brands. And so we always kind of got pigeonholed into being a men's brand because that's how retailers at the time worked. There was you were either in the men's aisle or you were in the women's aisle. There was no
now it's
non-gender
not
specific.
That much.
Yeah, now it's a little different, but back in the day, it was sort of like you had to be one or the other.
Yeah. You need to pick on a shelf.
Totally. Like, which aisle do you want to be in, John?
Yeah.
You have to decide. So there was more of an opportunity to be in the men's aisle. So of course we took the opportunities. But that's how we started. It was just an interest, and I thought there was a hole in the market, a gap in the market for it, and I was looking for something myself, and that's sort of how we started. And so it started with our moisturizer, and then we added a few products, and then we went to the market, and we were really, really, really lucky. Like, the packaging helped us to stand out. And I remember GQ saw the products and reached out, and they wrote a whole piece on our packaging and how unique it was, and they were big fans of our moisturizer formulation. And then, we were covered in every place from Vogue, with Men's Health, Women's Health, Oprah magazine. I mean, you name it, we were in every single magazine at the time. It was just, we got a lot of attention.
That's incredible. But how from there, and in what part of this timeline you started at Beauty Matter?
So,
because I have to tell, if you're in the beauty industry, John knows you.
Well, so what happened was, it was probably a little over 10 years ago. I don't come from the beauty industry. I don't know anything about the beauty industry. And I always felt like an outsider, always. And I still to this day kind of feel like an outsider sometimes as well, but I always felt like an outsider. And, I had brought the products to Barney's multiple times, and they were just like, man, no one wants to buy skincare in a pouch. Like, sorry, like no one wants this. And, I had always sort of, we had some really good success with some online retailers. We had some really good success with some smaller specialty retailers. I actually was just with Ian Ginsberg from C.O. Bigelow. C.O. Bigelow was our first account here in Greenwich Village in New York City. And we had these like amazing sort of marquee specialty accounts, but for some reason we could never break into like the big time, which at the time, believe it or not, was department store. Everyone wanted to be in the department stores. Now, no one really cares about the department stores, but everyone wanted to be in the department stores, and we just couldn't break into the department stores. And so,
but hold on, let's demystify that for a second, because everyone wants to be in department stores. Everyone wants to go into retail. And I believe that a brand can be very successful even they decide not to go in that path.
Which I am fascinated. I cannot wait till we have that conversation, because we did not, I never took any money at Ernest Supplies. And the way I funded my business was I funded it through purchase orders from retailers. And retailers, especially the ones that we were dealing with at the time, like these smaller specialty retailers, are fantastic accounts, because most of them pay by credit card.
They're fantastic, but still you sell wholesale. So your margins are much lower.
Margins are lower for sure. You're giving up a bunch of margin. But we didn't have a ton of money, and, it was a very small team. And so we decided just strategically that we were going to grow our business with wholesale revenue. And so we went out and most of our business, in fact, for a long time, I would say 80 to 90% of our business was wholesale. And we just weren't having success breaking into these larger accounts. And so a friend of mine introduced me to Kelly Kovac, who was the consultant to know at the time. Everyone was like, "Oh, you have to." She still is, right? Everyone was like, "Oh, you have to talk to Kelly. She is just brilliant. She'll be able to give you some feedback, and she'll be able to give you some advice, and she'll be able to help you break into some of these larger places and make some really smart decisions about how to sort of direct the brand." And so I was introduced to Kelly. We worked together on a consulting basis. She helped me with the brand. And once the project was over, we remained friends. And so
first of all, I want to say something, that what we were talking about completely different times that we're talking now. Yes. Now it's a completely different ecosystem in the digital.
Oh, 100%.
So back then, I think it was really smart that you tried to go retail, because it was a great way to get exposure.
Totally. Yeah. The world is so different today. It's changed actually probably multiple times since back in the day. But yeah, this is, I started working on this, in 2009, I think is when we set up the company. I started working on the formulas 2009, 2010. My first delivery was, I don't remember when we got it, 2011. The packages leaked all over the place, and so we had to send them back. And
I want to say something. What was your reaction when you got the first order?
We spend so much time like consuming. This was one of the first times in my life where I had actually like created something. And, we had like no customers. I set up a rudimentary website, and we had no customers. But slowly but surely, we built like a little customer base online. And I remember I went to a party here in New York City, and the guy actually was an editor at a magazine that we had sent the products out to. And I was in the bathroom, and of course I was like snooping because I wanted to see like what products he used. And I looked, and I saw our shaving cream and our face wash in his shower. And I was like, holy cow, like this is crazy. Like this person who I don't really know, I'm at their house and I'm looking in their shower, and there is the stuff that, I designed.
Those things are incredible. Like,
it was so crazy.
I met someone, and then casually I mentioned that I have a podcast, and she was, "See you? Like, you?" And it was,
isn't it so crazy?
It was so crazy. When you do something, you do it because you love it and you never expect to be recognized.
But, like even with your podcast, like, this is just like energy that we have, creative energy.
Yeah.
It's energy that we have that we're putting out into the world, and you just hope someone's going to appreciate it. And when someone does, you're just like, wow, that is crazy. It's almost like you can't believe it.
You can't. But finish telling the story about how you started working with Kelly, because I really want to hear that.
So it was probably around 2015 or 2016. Kelly and I, we had remained friends, and we had gone out for a coffee, and we were talking about this idea that she had about creating a media property for the beauty space. And so because of my work in the fashion industry, I had been getting, if you can remember, Women's Wear Daily used to be a newspaper, and it used to be delivered to your front door every morning. And so I had been getting Women's Wear Daily delivered to my front door since the early 2000s. And I loved it, but I always waited for Friday, because Friday was when they covered beauty, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm interested in the fashion show and all the other things that you're covering during the week, but Friday was the day that I would never miss reading my Women's Wear Daily, because that was when they covered beauty. And, at the time, the beauty industry, for being such a marketing-driven, brand-driven, dynamic, incredibly, creative industry, the media that sort of covered the beauty industry was not very dynamic. It was very, very bad. And this is back in, 2015 or so. So I think there are some people that are doing a great job covering it, including Women's Wear. I think they do a great job covering the industry. Business of Fashion does a great job covering beauty, Glossy, Beauty Independent. There's a whole bunch of outlets now that sort of do it. But for the most part, most of them are, first fashion coverage and then beauty coverage, right?
Yes.
But back in the day, those outlets, like Business of Fashion didn't even exist probably. And, they certainly weren't covering beauty.
Either.
Beauty Independent didn't exist. And so Kelly had this idea, and I was a big advocate of it. I thought it was a brilliant idea. At the time, had gotten myself involved in a media company, which is another story altogether. But needless
we'll
to
need
say,
another podcast for that.
Yeah, it'll be another podcast. But I was just a big advocate of it, and so she, started the business on her own. She had a few partners that she was working with, someone who was helping her build out the tech, and she had gotten some people roped in, as all entrepreneurs do. And she was writing everything herself, for years, literally writing 18 stories a week and publishing it.
Honestly, for us today, I don't know how she does it. To get the work that she gets done.
Today, it's different. I mean, she's still...
Yeah.
But she ran it as like a passion. She was also consulting, and yeah, it wasn't a real business. But what was being built was this really formidable, very highly valuable, in my mind,
but it happens
community
in every business. I mean, community to me is the keyword of this year. It's about building community. But also, it's like you were doing what you wanted to do, the entrepreneur route. And starting something is never easy, mostly also when you're self-funding. So you were going with your product line, and with Beauty Matters, you were starting two things at the same time, which is a lot.
Totally. So I became available because I had been involved in something else, and we sold it back at the end of 2018. And then in 2019, I suddenly had a little bit of time on my hands. And so the thought was I would like to focus a little bit more on Ernest Supplies, but then also help Kelly build Beauty Matter into an actual business. I mean, she had this really valuable community. And so we decided to work, more intentionally together. And it was sort of interesting timing because it was a few months before the pandemic hit. So, one of our first things that we were planning as a business was we were planning this big summit that was supposed to happen in March of 2020. Needless to say, it never happened.
Then was the next? What that we had in LA in 2022 was kind of that?
it wasn't going to be that, but sometimes things happen, and it would have been a totally different type of event. But
I have to say that one is one of my favorite events from last year.
I'm so happy to hear you say that, because we put our heart and soul into that event. That actually ended up being our first event, our first big event, right?
I was honestly, it was so well thought out.
Thank you for that.
Every little thing. It's one, if you want, and what I really loved is that you made it really exclusive for people in the beauty industry, that it was everyone there knew what you were talking about. You didn't have to go one-on-one beauty.
Yeah. Well, we are a content platform. So the content is always a really big piece of the puzzle for us. And we really, really agonize over making sure that we're putting together really valuable content. Everything that we do at Beauty Matter, we always have this perspective of, if someone's going to give us even 5 minutes of their day, we want to make sure that they get something out of it so that they have something actionable to use in their business that day, right? So they can go back to their desk.
At the same time, you guys are a trade publication, so you're talking to experts in the industry.
Totally. Yeah. The other thing that's really interesting, and I wouldn't say that I'm an expert, or even, Kelly's an expert in everything, but the fact that we own businesses in the space, the fact that, I have a warehouse, we manufacture, we design packaging, we know, logistics, we sell into retail, we've both done, we are our audience in some ways, right? And I think that sort of helps us when we're creating content for our audience. It helps us that we sort of have sat in their chairs before.
I was looking this article, and I have it open with me right now, that from Glossy a couple of weeks ago, that it's saying that the indie beauty brands are starting to shut down. Mm-hmm. What's your take with that? Because I do believe that during the pandemic exploded, that so many people want to have a side business, or they want to do something. And as we were discussing before, having a beauty brand is not something that is completely ridiculous or difficult.
Yeah, so that is very true. And that's great, because it's encouraged a lot of people to sort of get into the space. The downside to that is that the market is extremely saturated. Back when I started Ernest Supplies, in the sort of 2010, 2011 time frame of when we sort of just got started, it was possible, I believe, to bootstrap a beauty brand. And, I would say if you had a few access to, to some level of cash flow through the business, or you were able to sort of friends and family together a few $100,000, you could put together a brand, and you could get it to scale, and you could get it to a place where it was self-sustaining and able to grow. I'm not to say that it's impossible, but I am a big believer in, if you start a beauty brand today and you're serious about it, you need to go out and you need to raise resources, and you need to bring capital into the business, because it is so incredibly expensive to operate a beauty business today, and to scale it. If of course, if you're looking just to keep it as like a little hobby or like as a side business, then you could probably get away without going out. The thing is that
it's a competition, and you need to be. It's not about having the money to manufacture the product. It's also about to market the product.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And so when you think about the evolution of the distribution landscape in the beauty space, it's really markedly different today than it was even just 5 years ago. And so, department stores have become a little bit less relevant. And that model, that sort of concession model, that was the department store model, has become less relevant. And in its place is sort of, the advent of like Target and Ulta and Walmart, and, the collaborations between Ulta and Target and Space NK and Walmart. Those are sort of the big retail growth drivers today. Those are, combine that with Ulta and Sephora and all the prestige, points of distribution. And it amounts to a very, very expensive way to distribute your products.
And it's very difficult as an owner of a company doing it all yourself. So
it's impossible.
It's impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible.
You need to have a support team, and which is expensive also.
Totally, because it's not just it's a combination of, you know, I think the easiest part is, and by the way, Ernest Supply sold in Target. We did a collaboration with Target in 2017. So we were a little early again. Like we specialize in being a little early. So we were like sort of pre-Target, embracing like the indie brands. But you know, the easiest thing was getting the meeting, even though that seems like it's the hardest thing. The easiest thing was getting the meeting, flying out to Minneapolis, hanging out with like the buyer, telling the story and getting them excited about the products. We designed like a little capsule collection. So we did like custom packaging for Target because the price point was a little bit lower to fit the Target customer. We did a great job. We did not lose money on the project, but the hardest part for us was driving sell-through and marketing. So our audience was mainly on, you know, social media, and it was mainly through email and digital. We did our part to, you know, to drive awareness to the fact that we were in Target, but we were only in a few hundred Target stores, right? And there's over 1,800 throughout the United States. So, and they were not in like big cities, right? So most of our audience is sort of in like the big cities, right? So New York, LA, Boston, Miami, Dallas, Chicago.
That happens a lot of times when you get into department stores, that they're going to test your product, and not necessarily it's going to be where you believe your target audience is.
Totally. And so we were advertising, but all the people that we speak to are in those places, are in those big cities, right? And meanwhile, you know, we're responsible for driving sell-through in, you know, Howell, New Jersey. Like that's like an hour and a half outside of New York City, right? Or outside of Philly. It's like, it's nowhere.
But I'm sure
right?
You went just to see it on the shelves.
Of course I did. I was there. I would go everywhere. I mean, I am a very active. When I was like really devoted to Ernest Supplies, I was very active. You know, everything from like,
what do you have to do if it's your own brand?
Totally. I was in the stores. I was making sure that things were merchandise. When things weren't on the shelf, I'd go to the manager. I'd say, hey, this is, I know I shipped it to you. It's in the back. Bring it out. Can't sell it unless it's on the shelf. You know, and then, you know, when we were in a lot of department store doors, you know, one of the most fun things actually was going to all of the different department store doors and training the staff. I would love to do that. It was my favorite thing. I would buy them all lunch. I would bring them all samples. I would, you know, hang out with them. I would text with them. Hey, how's it going? Like, any questions? You know, it was so important, but it is, it's a lot of work for one person.
It is.
And it's impossible.
I always tell the story. I have this friend of mine. She developed a food dressing, a salad dressing.
Oh, wow.
And what was killing her, it was very successful, ended up selling in a lot of stores, but the demos. She had to go every weekend to a different store in different places in the United States, and she will go herself and do the demo.
Yeah. Because it's expensive. You know, it's expensive to hire a group to do it. There is something to
and nobody will sell it like you sell it.
Nobody will. There is something to the owner showing up and being in the market and being with, like, by the way, the most important people in your business are the people who are on the front lines selling it. And so that sales team when
you detach yourself, when can you let go?
When can I let go?
Yeah.
I'm waiting. I'm gonna figure that out one day.
It's so hard. Like
it is. It is so hard. You know, even with Beauty Matter, you know, Kelly and I, like, we really do put our heart and soul into these things. And, you know, we just hosted a really incredible event here in New York.
I was so bummed out I couldn't go.
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic, but it's almost like everyone is coming into our home. That's how I view it. And, you know, we had put together this like really incredible experience in this great space, but I felt the responsibility for every person that was there. And I wanted to make sure everyone was connected and having a good time. Kelly and I, like I said, we sometimes both have felt like outsiders in the beauty industry because we're not sort of like the traditional, like we don't come from like the L'Oreals or the Estee Lauders, the big beauty, the big beauty companies. And so we don't know as many people, I would say. And, we're a little bit less conventional. I'm a very casual person, so I'm in jeans and a t-shirt every day. And so there have been moments where I've gone to events and I definitely don't know anyone, and you're sort of like in the corner and you don't really know anyone. And so when people come to a Beauty Matter event, we want to make sure that everyone has a place, everyone fits in. Everyone is there for a reason, of course. We either we know them or there are people who have found us and have decided to invest their time or their money with us to be at that event. And so Kelly and I take it very personally. We want to make sure that everyone is getting as much as they can out of the time that they're spending with us. And so whether it's putting together really great content for them, making sure that there's lots of opportunities to network, or just going up to someone who might be like standing in a corner kind of by themselves and saying hi and, introducing ourselves.
I remember in the event that you did in LA, I think that the only rule that you guys have that day is that you have to go and talk to someone that you didn't know.
Did you do it?
Of course.
Good.
You don't know me already?
I know. You don't have a problem saying hi to people.
No, I don't. And I love, what can I say? I used to be very shy, but I learned that if you don't, it's hi. You're not soliciting. You're just talking to people.
Yeah, for sure. And, you never know who you meet. Like you might meet someone who, there's an opportunity to do some business with, but you might just meet someone who's a friend or someone who's a familiar face that you'll see at another event somewhere. And
I have to tell you this. I went to a social event the other day and I met a woman say, I met your Beauty Matter.
I love that.
Yes.
I see. I love that.
And we were in a social event. So we ended up, and now we're texting and we became friendly, and you never know.
Well, that story is mission accomplished in my mind. I love that. That is exactly why we do these events. It's to sort of bring our community together. So I love that.
Yeah,
that makes me very happy.
I would have never met her before if I didn't just go and speak to her. And that's what I think is the beauty about networking. And I'm so grateful that you guys provide those opportunities, because your events are not stuffy that it's just, you need to listen to the panel and that's it.
Yeah. And we're getting better. That event, the next event in LA last year in September, which by the way, we're doing again in October in downtown LA again.
I'll be there.
Okay, great. But yeah, that event was our first event and I thought it was great. I thought it was, just so fantastic, but we definitely learned a lot. And, there were some notes that we all had for ourselves, or notes that other people gave us about ways we could sort of make it better. And so, we're constantly evolving and evolving, our concepts and evolving the way we bring people together.
As the industry is evolving, and I'm sure that this is something that you're going to have to address also in the next event, how it's affecting the indie beauty industry. And all this conversation is something that is evolving constantly.
Yeah. To go back to what we started talking about before about, indie brands, not starting to show signs of some weakness. There are some brands that were not indie brands that have gone out and raised a lot of money that are also showing some signs of weakness right now. The industry in general has been very resilient. It really has. We've been very fortunate in the beauty space that the space has withstood the sort of tests of the economy and inflation, and even through the pandemic, it has withstood those stresses in a lot better than a lot of other industries have. That being said, the success has not been distributed evenly. And certain categories have been favored over others. So for example, during the pandemic, you had tons of color cosmetics companies and makeup companies, having a tremendous amount of stress on their businesses because no one was really buying that stuff. But then you had body care companies and hair care companies.
Yeah, hair growth after the pandemic, it became like a new trend.
Totally. Skincare is perennially like a pretty reliable category. And, now color is back. Color is a fantastic category. Personal care is a little, it's a little less exciting for.
But also we have new categories that sexual wellness.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many interesting subcategories and conversations that are happening within beauty. It is an incredibly dynamic industry. And there's so many smart people who are doing so many, incredible things. It's what keeps us in business at Beauty Matter. This is the stuff that we love to report on. There's so many things happening on any given day. So.
And I love that. Well, thank you, John, for being here today and for having coffee with me. This was amazing.
Thank you so much for having me, and anytime. And I look forward to hanging out with you either in LA or at some point before that.
In the next event, who knows?
All right.
And to you guys, thank you for being here one more time, and I'll see you next week. It was so good to have you here today. See you next time. Catch you on the flip side. Ciao, ciao.